Ethan Harper sat silently by the hospital window, his vacant gaze following the gray sky outside. A light drizzle fell on the glass, reflecting off his haggard face. The dark circles under his eyes betrayed sleepless nights, long days of struggling with pain and helplessness. On the hospital bed, Maya Harper sat with her head against the pale white wall, her hand tightly clasping the small hand of Nathan, their 6-month-old son. A child who should have been crawling, babbling, laughing, but instead his body remained motionless, showing no signs of life that a normal child should have. The doctor's diagnosis had been handed down to them like an unforgiving death sentence. Nathan has a rare form of neuromuscular paralysis. There is currently no effective treatment for it. We are sorry. Those words still echoed in Ethan's mind, like a cruel refrain that would never stop. As a neuroscientist, Ethan has devoted his life to studying the human brain, but now he can do nothing to save his own son. One irony. A man who was once honored for his groundbreaking work now helplessly watches his only son fall into the vortex of fate. Maya, who was once a vibrant teacher, is now a shadow of herself. She cried until her tears ran dry, but the tears did nothing but make her heart bleed more. In the days after hearing the bad news, she no longer had the strength to teach, no motivation to step out of the house. The hospital was their second home. Hundreds of tests, countless meetings with specialists, but all brought only one answer: there is no cure. Nathan lay motionless in the hospital crib, his skin pale but fair, his big round eyes staring blankly at the ceiling as if trying to understand what was happening. He didn't cry, didn't move. That silence was even more terrifying than the screams, because it was a sign of surrender to fate. Day after day, Ethan and Maya tried everything they could. They hired the best physical therapists, tried every advanced treatment, but all to no avail. Nathan's little fingers remained motionless. His tiny legs wouldn't budge. They prayed. They searched for every miracle possible. But it seemed like God had turned his back on them. One day, when Ethan was almost in despair, a terrifying thought appeared in his mind. Should I give up? Would Nathan ever have a chance to live like a normal child? Or was I just clinging to a vain hope? The thought drove Ethan crazy. He jumped up, left the hospital room, and ran madly down the hospital corridor. Maya watched his figure, her eyes empty, because she knew she was thinking the same thing. They didn't want to abandon their son. They loved Nathan with all their hearts, but they were also human beings, exhausted by pain and helplessness. In the days that followed, Ethan was no longer himself. He threw himself into frantic research, looking for any glimmer of hope that could help his son recover. He stayed up many nights, read hundreds of studies, contacted the world's leading experts. But no matter how hard he tried, the answer was still a dead end. Maya was the opposite. She began to withdraw, spending most of her time with Nathan, just silently looking at her son without saying a word. She stopped crying because she had cried until her tears ran dry. There was only one creature that remained faithful, even though no one paid any attention to it. Leo, the golden retriever puppy Ethan had brought home 2 months ago. Ever since Nathan got sick, Leo had become his most loyal friend. When Nathan was in the crib, Leo would lie underneath. When Maya carried Nathan out, Leo would follow his every step. When Ethan sat absent-mindedly by the window, Leo would gently nuzzle his head into his lap, as if to comfort him. And something strange happened that no one noticed at the time. Leo never left Nathan's side. The little dog seemed to sense something. Whenever Nathan slept, Leo would lie next to him. Whenever Maya cried, Leo would gently lick her hand, as if to say that everything would be okay. Ethan didn't notice. Neither did Maya. But something was going on, something that couldn't be explained by reason or science. The days of suffering continued, but somewhere in this cycle of tragedy, a small miracle began to bloom, though no one noticed. Only Leo knew. And the little dog would not stop until everyone saw the miracle that was about to happen. Leo never left Nathan's side, not even for a second. Day and night, the golden retriever puppy always lay next to the boy's crib, its round eyes following his weak breath. Although no one noticed, Leo seemed to have an invisible string connecting him to Nathan. One early morning, when the sunlight quietly filtered through the window, Maya woke up after a long night of tossing and turning. She reached out to stroke Nathan's soft hair and kissed her son's forehead. Still the same. Nothing had changed. She tiredly got up to make a cup of coffee, but when she turned back, she saw a strange sight. Leo was gently placing his nose on Nathan's hand, his tail wagging as if he was expecting something. Maya frowned. This had happened many times before, but this morning something was different. She stepped closer. Nathan's small hand twitched slightly. She held her breath. Was I imagining it? She stared at Nathan, but he remained motionless. Nothing had changed. Maya sighed softly, thinking that perhaps she was too tired to be hallucinating. But as she turned away, Leo suddenly licked Nathan's hand again, and this time Nathan's hand moved more clearly. Her heart stopped. She hurriedly called Ethan. Ethan. I think Nathan just moved. Ethan rushed into the room, his eyes filled with disbelief. He looked at Nathan, then at Maya. I didn't see anything. His voice was low. But I just saw it. When Leo touched Nathan, his hand moved. I'm sure. Ethan rubbed his tired face. Maya, I've been up late for days. I'm exhausted. We can't fool ourselves. Maya looked at her husband, her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to believe that what she saw was real, but was she so desperate that she was deluding herself? Leo didn't give up, however. That night, Ethan lay on the sofa, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep. His mind was filled with chaotic thoughts. Science couldn't explain miracles. He was a scientist, and he understood that nothing happened by chance. But what if Maya was right? What if Nathan really reacted to Leo? He quietly walked into his son's room. Leo was still there, like a loyal guardian. Ethan stared at the little dog, a thought flashing through his mind. Why did Leo pay special attention to Nathan? He searched his memory. Since the day they brought Nathan home from the hospital, Leo had never left his side. At first, Ethan thought it was just a dog's instinct, loyalty, attachment to family. But now it didn't seem so simple. He took out his phone, turned on the camera, and started recording. He wanted to see if he could see what Maya had seen. After a few minutes, Leo gently pressed his nose against Nathan's palm again. At that moment, Ethan held his breath. The small hand moved slightly. There was no doubt about it. This couldn't be a coincidence. Ethan felt his heart beat faster. He checked the video again. Yes, Nathan's hand had moved. Very slightly, but it was definitely there. He immediately woke Maya up. Maya, you're right. His voice was broken with emotion. She immediately sat up, looking at her husband in confusion. Ethan handed her the phone. Look. Maya took the phone with trembling hands, staring at the screen. And when she saw what had happened, tears began to roll down her cheeks. Ethan, is it true? He nodded, his eyes still on Nathan and Leo. They didn't know what was happening. There was no scientific explanation for this. But they knew that Leo was no ordinary dog. And somehow, something was awakening in Nathan's body. They didn't know what it was, but maybe this was the ray of hope they had been waiting for all this time. Ethan and Maya couldn't take their eyes off Nathan and Leo. They both knew something was strange, but neither could explain it. A normal puppy couldn't possibly have this kind of effect on a child with cerebral palsy. Ethan, with his scientist instincts, decided to test things out more thoroughly. He placed Nathan on the bed, carefully observing him, while filming every moment. Maya sat beside him, her hands clenched in tension. Leo, as usual, walked over to the boy. But this time, Ethan noticed something different. Leo wasn't just lying next to Nathan, he was acting very differently. The little dog leaned down, licked Nathan's hand, and then carefully rubbed his head against the boy's tiny palm. Nathan's hand twitched slightly as if by reflex. It wasn't an unconscious movement, it was a real reaction. Maya held her breath, her hand covering her mouth to keep from making a sound. Ethan quickly pressed slow motion to watch it more closely. But the most remarkable thing did not stop there. Leo suddenly stepped onto the bed, gently pushing Nathan's paw with his muzzle. His little tail wagged continuously as if he was expecting something. Nathan still did not react immediately, but then, just for a brief moment, his little paw twitched slightly. Maya almost screamed but covered her mouth in time. Ethan was startled, his heart pounding in his chest. Say, he whispered. Maya nodded, tears falling down her face. She had never seen Nathan react at all since he was diagnosed. But now, Leo seemed to realize it too. The little dog began to repeat this action persistently. Leo gently touched Nathan's paw with his nose, waited, and then continued to do it a few more times. It was as if he was trying to awaken something inside the child. Ethan sat on the floor, holding his head in his hands. This was impossible. There was no biological reason for this phenomenon. But Maya didn't care about science anymore. All she knew was that, for the first time in months, her son had a clear reaction. And the one who caused it was not the doctors, not modern therapy, but a small dog they had thought was just a simple companion. That night, they decided to keep a closer eye on Leo. If this was just a coincidence, it couldn't have happened so many times. Ethan set up a surveillance camera in Nathan's bedroom. He wanted to record every movement, every contact between Leo and his son. But that very night, something else surprising happened. Around 3 in the morning, Maya was startled awake by a strange sound, a light scratching at her door. She quickly sat up and noticed Leo standing there, staring at her, his eyes wide as if he was signaling something. "Leo," she called softly. The dog wagged his tail, but didn't run to her like he usually did. Instead, he walked towards Nathan's bed, put his muzzle on the crib, and whined softly. Maya quickly woke Ethan. "Ethan, wake up. Look, Leo is signaling something." Ethan woke up groggily, not understanding what was going on at first. But when he saw Leo, he knew something was wrong. They both rushed to Nathan's side. He was still lying there, but there was a slight change. Nathan's breathing seemed deeper, and his hand was moving slightly. Ethan immediately turned on the camera to review the footage from the night before. When he fast-forwarded to the most recent moment, the scene before his eyes made his skin crawl. Leo hadn't slept all night. The little dog had been sitting silently beside Nathan's crib, his eyes glowing in the darkness. Every few minutes, Leo would lean down, gently place his head on Nathan's leg, then look up to stare at Nathan's face as if watching his every breath. Ethan and Maya looked at each other, both speechless. "This isn't normal," Ethan muttered. "I know," Maya whispered. They didn't know what to think. Didn't know how to explain what was happening. But one thing they were sure of, Leo knew more than they could imagine. This dog wasn't just a mindless companion. He was doing something that even medical science had yet to discover. And Ethan knew he needed to dig deeper into this. Ethan and Maya entered the next night with a strange feeling in their hearts. Neither of them talked much about what they had witnessed the night before, but deep down, they both knew that Leo was no ordinary dog. Ethan spent the afternoon sitting in front of the computer, opening a series of scientific articles about the special abilities of dogs. He had read about dogs being able to sense earthquakes, detect cancer, and even recognize changes in human brain waves. But was it possible that a dog could help stimulate the nerves of a paralyzed child? That question haunted him. But Ethan had no time to find an answer because tonight something else unexpected happened. Night fell, the small house was quiet. Nathan slept in the small crib, while Leo still kept his familiar position right next to him. The little dog curled up, but his ears were always perked up as if listening for something. At 2 a.m., a sudden barking sound rang out in the room. Maya woke up. She looked around, her heart pounding. Leo was standing next to the crib, his body tense, his fur bristling, his eyes shining in the darkness. "Leo?" Maya mumbled, sensing that something was wrong. Leo didn't look at her. The dog just stared at Nathan, whining softly, then suddenly jumped onto the crib, something Leo had never done before. Maya immediately woke Ethan up. "Ethan, what are you doing, Leo? Get up." Ethan jumped up, quickly turning on the light. As soon as the light flooded the room, he saw Leo gently pushing Nathan's body with his front paws, scratching as if trying to wake him up. "Nathan!" Maya shouted, rushing to her son's bed. The boy was still sleeping, but something was very strange. Nathan's hand twitched slightly. It was no longer just a small reflex. This time, the little boy's fingers moved clearly, as if an electric current had passed through them. Ethan froze, unable to believe his eyes. He turned to Leo. The puppy was now extremely agitated. Leo barked repeatedly, scratching at the crib, then turned to Ethan and Maya as if he wanted them to do something. "What's going on?" Maya asked, trembling. Ethan quickly took out his phone, recording everything that was happening. He knelt down next to Nathan, tremblingly touching his son's small hand. The little boy moved again. This time, it wasn't just his hand. Nathan's little legs twitched slightly. Maya burst into tears. "Ethan, you're moving. You're moving." Ethan couldn't say anything. He just stared at Nathan, then turned to Leo. Leo, what did you do? But Leo stopped barking. He just sat down, looking at Nathan with calm eyes, as if he knew this would happen. Maya trembled as she reached out to hug Nathan, feeling his warm body in her arms. She had never dared to hope for this day. Ethan was still too shocked to say anything. He picked up the phone and called Dr. Olivia Carter. Olivia, you have to come here. Nathan. Nathan is moving. There was silence on the other end of the line. A moment later, Olivia's voice rang out, still not fully awake from being woken up in the middle of the night. Ethan, what did you say? My son. Nathan. He's moving. I need you to come here now. Less than an hour later, Olivia was in the small room. She was a famous neurologist, having seen countless rare cases, but when she entered the room and saw Leo sitting next to Nathan, and the boy was actually moving his arms and legs gently, she was completely stunned. No way. Olivia muttered. Ethan showed her the recorded video. She watched it over and over again, her face showing shock. This disease cannot recover on its own. Medicine has never recorded such a case. Maya took Olivia's hand, her tears still not dry. But it's happening right before your eyes, Olivia. Please check my son. Olivia walked over, put her hand on Nathan's foot, and tried to check his reflexes. Unlike the previous test, this time there was a reaction. Oh my God! Olivia exclaimed. She took the pin and tapped it lightly on the sole of Nathan's foot. And then, for the first time in months, his foot contracted clearly. Ethan and Maya almost burst into tears. Olivia sat down on the chair, holding her forehead with her hand. Maybe, she muttered, as if thinking about something. Maybe what? Ethan asked immediately. Olivia turned to look at Ethan, then back at Leo. Maybe this dog has stimulated a part of Nathan's brain that we haven't studied yet. Ethan held his breath. Olivia continued, I've read some studies about how dogs can sense and interact with human electromagnetic waves. But no, one has concrete evidence. If Leo has some ability that we don't understand, then maybe he helped Nathan awaken his nervous system. Maya covered her mouth, not daring to believe what Olivia was saying. Ethan just looked at Leo, his loyal little friend who was still sitting quietly beside his son. Maybe Olivia was right. Maybe Leo really did have something special. But to Ethan, none of that mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was Nathan was recovering. And all that was thanks to this little dog. The next morning, the sunlight gently filtered through the window, casting a warm glow over the small room. But today was unlike any other morning before. Nathan was still sleeping soundly, breathing steadily, but there was a small change that Ethan and Maya couldn't ignore. The boy looked more alive. His skin was no longer pale. His breathing was no longer as weak as before. And most importantly, his small hands were no longer completely motionless. Leo lay right next to the crib, his round brown eyes silently watching Nathan, as if he knew that something big was about to happen. Ethan and Maya still couldn't believe that last night's miracle was real. Olivia, even though she was an experienced doctor, still couldn't explain Nathan's change, but she knew it wasn't a coincidence. That whole morning, Olivia performed a series of tests. She measured Nathan's heart rate, muscle reflexes, and nerve activity. And then, when they tested the reflexes in the boy's feet, something neither Ethan nor Maya had dared to expect happened. Nathan pulled his legs back when Olivia touched the soles of his feet. Maya immediately threw herself into Ethan's arms, sobbing into his arms. Olivia was still stunned. She looked at Leo, then back at Nathan. How did this happen? She muttered. Ethan took a deep breath. He had thought a lot last night, and now he had a theory that would change everything he knew about neuroscience. Olivia, Ethan said slowly. What do you think if Leo is more than just a normal dog? Olivia frowned. What do you mean? Ethan knelt down beside Leo, placing his hand on the puppy's head, stroking the soft fur. Dogs have been shown to detect illness, to sense changes in human brain waves. But maybe Leo did more than that. Maybe he somehow stimulated a part of Nathan's brain that science had never studied before. Olivia was silent for a long moment. She looked back at Nathan's readings on the monitor, then turned to Ethan. If what you say is true, this would be a groundbreaking discovery. Maya sat down, taking her son's hand in hers, her voice still choked with emotion. I don't care if this is a scientific discovery or not. I just know that Leo did something, and our son is recovering. Olivia smiled softly. There's no denying that. That afternoon, Nathan woke up. For the first time in months, he wasn't just lying there motionless. He blinked a few times, turned his head to look around, and the most amazing thing happened. The boy reached out and touched Leo's soft fur. The room fell silent for a moment. Maya almost held her breath. Ethan felt his heart pounding in his chest. Olivia stared at the scene before her, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Leo licked Nathan's hand, wagging his tail happily. And then, Nathan smiled. A small, weak smile, but enough to make the whole room explode with emotion. Maya hugged her son, crying silently. Ethan sat down next to her, wrapping his arms around them. Olivia stood silently, feeling like she had just witnessed something beyond human understanding. Leo just sat there, his eyes filled with peace, as if he had known this would happen. Nathan didn't just move. He was waking up from a long, painful sleep. The Harpers couldn't be sure what would happen next. But they knew one thing: the miracle had begun. And their little dog was the one who made it happen. The next morning, Ethan woke up with a feeling he hadn't felt in months: hope. Nathan was sleeping peacefully in his crib, but unlike the previous days, his body was no longer completely still. Occasionally, his tiny fingers twitched slightly, and his legs occasionally moved slightly. Not much, but enough for Ethan and Maya to understand that this was no coincidence. Leo still didn't leave Nathan's bed. The little dog was like a loyal guardian, always ready to lie beside him, his eyes filled with concern and alertness. Ethan turned on his computer and began to write detailed notes about everything that had happened. He knew he couldn't explain this phenomenon in the usual way, but he wanted to record everything to find a rule, a pattern that could help him better understand what was going on. Maya wasn't interested in science. She just sat next to Nathan, holding his little hand and whispering words of love. "My son, you are stronger than ever." She stopped crying. For the first time in months, she felt her heart no longer sinking into despair. Dr. Olivia Carter arrived at noon to continue monitoring Nathan. Even though she was a hard-nosed scientist, Olivia could not deny what was happening before her eyes. This time, she tried another test. She gently placed a small toy in Nathan's palm. Everyone held their breath. At first, the boy's hand was as still as ever. But then, very slowly, very weakly, Nathan's fingers clenched. Ethan almost dropped the camera. Maya covered her mouth, tears welling up again. Olivia immediately checked Nathan's reflexes again, recording every change on the monitoring chart. She looked up, her eyes blazing with a rare excitement. "There's a signal. A real signal." Ethan stepped toward her. "What do you mean?" Olivia said slowly, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was saying. "Nathan's brain is starting to reconnect with his motor system." Maya sobbed. "My son, he can recover, right?" Olivia took a deep breath. "If this continues, then maybe, yes. But what surprises me most is why it's happening." She turned to look at Leo. "And this dog. I don't think we really understand him." Leo just sat there, wagging his tail gently, his eyes lighting up as if he understood that he had just been mentioned. Over the next few days, Nathan continued to make slow, but steady progress. For the first time in months, he could move his fingers clearly. Then his feet. Then a faint movement in his arms. Each time Leo was right there. Whenever Nathan tried to move apart his body, Leo would rub his head against him, wagging his tail in encouragement. It was as if he was helping Nathan step by step, reawakening what had been lost. Ethan continued to record it all. He sorted through the data, analyzed every detail, tried to find any patterns that might explain this recovery. One evening, he called David Quinn, an old friend who had been a neuroscientist. "David, I think I've found something that's never been done before in science." David laughed over the phone. "You're always the one chasing crazy theories." "No, not theories this time. I have evidence." David was silent for a long moment. "Go on." Ethan took a deep breath. "Have you ever heard of dogs' ability to influence the electromagnetic waves in the human brain?" David laughed. "Ethan, are you talking about science fiction?" "No," Ethan said seriously. "Do you remember Dr. Reynolds' research? He showed that dogs can detect changes in the frequency of human brain waves." David mused. "I remember. But that's just a theory." No one has ever proven that dogs can influence human brainwaves. Maybe no one has proven it yet, Ethan said, his eyes on Leo, but I think I just found the first proof. While Ethan focused on the science, Maya simply enjoyed every moment with her son. She didn't need to understand why. She just needed to know that Nathan was recovering. One afternoon, she was sitting on the couch, holding Nathan in her arms, when she suddenly felt something change. Nathan, for the first time in months, raised his hand and touched his mother's cheek. Maya almost dropped her son in shock. "Ethan," she screamed. Ethan rushed into the room. "What's wrong?" Maya sobbed, pointing at Nathan. The boy looked at Ethan, eyes wide, and raised his hand again. This time the movement was clearer. Ethan felt his legs go weak. He turned to Leo. The little dog was wagging its tail happily, its eyes shining as if it knew it had done something wonderful. Ethan bent down and placed his hand on Leo's head, his voice hoarse with emotion. "Thank you, Leo." The dog just licked his hand, then turned back to Nathan, continuing to watch the boy with gentle, protective eyes. A miracle had happened. And the journey was not over yet. Nathan was coming back to life. And it was all thanks to their loyal dog. Nathan has recovered somewhat, but the journey is not over yet. Ethan and Maya still have many unanswered questions, but one thing they know for sure, Leo is not just an ordinary dog. Since Nathan's first movements, Leo has been more attached to him than ever. The little dog has not only lain beside Nathan, but also seemed to actively participate in his recovery process. Every morning, when Maya carries Nathan out to the living room to sunbathe, Leo is always right next to him. If Nathan accidentally falls, Leo immediately uses his body to catch him. If he tries to lift his arm, Leo gently places his head on it as if to help him maintain his balance. One afternoon, Maya placed Nathan on the exercise mat, letting him move freely as he pleases. Ethan sits next to him, holding a camera to record every moment. Leo lies just a few feet away from Nathan, wagging his tail encouragingly. "Son, come on," Maya said softly, her eyes full of love. Nathan looked up at Leo, his eyes shining. And then, with an effort no one had ever seen before, he lifted his arm, reaching out to Leo. Ethan almost dropped the camera. "That's right, son, you did it," Maya exclaimed. Leo jumped up, wagging his tail harder, his eyes sparkling with joy. The dog didn't bark, didn't jump up like he usually did. He just stood there, waiting as if he knew Nathan needed time to do it on his own. Nathan kept trying. His little arms were still weak, shaking, but he didn't give up. And then his arm touched Leo's soft fur. The room fell silent for a moment. Maya burst into tears. Ethan sat there, unable to speak. Leo didn't move. He let Nathan touch him, as if he knew this was an important moment. Only when Nathan's hand gently squeezed the golden fur did Leo lean down and gently lick the boy's fingers, as a congratulatory gesture. Maya hugged Ethan, tears falling down her cheeks, but this time not from pain, but from happiness. They both knew that this was more than just a physical recovery. Nathan and Leo had formed a deep connection, an inseparable friendship. From that day on, Nathan's recovery progressed faster than ever. Not only could he lift his arms, he could also hold onto toys, reach for small objects, and even start trying to inch forward. Whenever Nathan made new progress, Leo was always the first one there, cheering him on. If Nathan tried to sit up, Leo would stand next to him to help him keep his balance. If the boy wanted to move, Leo would lie down, allowing Nathan to lean against him to inch forward. Ethan and Maya had never seen anything quite like this. "This can't be a coincidence," Olivia said when she came to check on Nathan one afternoon. "I've never seen anything like this." Ethan nodded. "I've searched the medical literature. There's no research on a dog rewiring a human's motor nerve." Olivia looked at Nathan lying on the mat, his hand reaching out to Leo. "Do you think Leo actually did something?" Ethan was silent for a long moment. He had tried to find a scientific explanation, but the more he watched, the more he realized that this was more than science. Leo was more than just a dog. He had become Nathan's guide, his companion, and the only light in his recovery journey. One day, while Ethan was sorting through the videos of Nathan's recovery, he suddenly realized something. He replayed the footage from the first day. Nathan started to show signs of recovery. Every time, the boy's neurological reactions happened right after Leo did something. When Leo licked Nathan's hand, the boy's hand twitched for the first time. When Leo lightly scratched Nathan's leg, the boy started to react in his leg. When Leo gently touched Nathan's body, the boy started to try to sit up. Ethan paused the video. He looked at Leo lying next to Nathan, his eyes filled with tenderness. He suddenly realized something obvious. Leo wasn't just helping Nathan recover. This little dog was guiding Nathan step by step, encouraging him to reactivate his nervous system. No one taught Leo to do that. No one told Leo to be patient, to be gentle, to cheer Nathan on every day. But somehow he knew what to do. Ethan looked at Maya, who was sitting on the chair, looking at Nathan and Leo with a happy smile. She didn't need to know the reason. She only knew that her son was recovering. And it was all thanks to his loyal little friend. That night, as Maya rocked Nathan to sleep, Ethan sat on the chair, looking at Leo lying next to the crib, his eyes full of protection. He reached out and stroked the little dog's head. "You are really special, Leo." Leo looked up at him, then wagged his tail slightly, as if to say that he had known it all along. Nathan continued to recover in ways no doctor could explain. Not only did he move his arms and legs, he began to sit up and lift himself up whenever Leo encouraged him. The journey from a completely immobile child to being able to lift his arms, squeeze his mother's hand, or lean on Leo for balance left the Harper family in disbelief. The days of despair gave way to hope, a belief in a miracle, something they never thought would happen. Dr. Olivia Carter continued to monitor Nathan, recording every change. Her checkups were no longer to confirm the inability of medicine, but to witness the rebirth of a body that had seemingly lost its ability to move. One day, Olivia made an unexpected suggestion. "Ethan, Maya, I think we should share Nathan and Leo's story." Ethan was surprised. "What do you mean?" "I want to write a paper about Nathan. I want to let the world know that something special happened here." Maya hesitated. She didn't like the media attention, but if Nathan's story could help other families find hope, maybe it was worth a try. "What do you think?" Ethan asked his wife. Maya stroked Nathan's hair, then smiled. "If it can help someone, why not?" Within a week, Olivia Carter's paper was published in a prestigious medical journal. The Miraculous Recovery of Nathan Harper. Can a dog's intervention stimulate the human nervous system? The paper quickly attracted the attention of the scientific community. Neurologists from all over contacted Olivia, wanting to learn more about the case. But what was even more surprising was that the story of Nathan and Leo began to spread rapidly on social media. It all started with a post by Maya on a group for parents of children with mental illness. She posted a short video, the moment when Nathan first reached out to touch Leo. The video was accompanied by a simple caption, "Never lose hope. Miracles can come from the most unexpected places." Within hours, the video received thousands of shares. Viewers from all over the world expressed their emotions about Nathan's story. They left loving comments, wishing the Harper family, and especially Leo, the little dog who made the miracle happen. The next day, Ethan received a call from a famous TV show. "We would like to invite your family to participate in an interview to share the story of Nathan and Leo. We believe that your story can inspire millions of people." Maya looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with worry. "Do you think we should do it?" Ethan took her hand, smiling. "I think, if we can bring hope to someone out there, then we should try." And so a week later, the Harper family appeared on television with Leo. The show was broadcast live, and millions of viewers listened to the miraculous story of Nathan and Leo's friendship. As Ethan recounted the moment Nathan moved for the first time in months, the audience in the studio could not hide their emotions. Maya held her son's hand tightly, tears welling up in her eyes as she recalled the months of pain and despair. But it was Nathan who brought the biggest surprise. When the host asked, "Nathan, is there anything you want to say to everyone?" The boy, with Ethan's help, lifted his arms and hugged Leo. The studio erupted in applause. A true miracle had happened. In the days that followed, a series of medical research organizations contacted Ethan, hoping to learn more about the role of animals in the neurological recovery process. Some doctors even proposed to set up a research project based on Nathan's case. But for Ethan and Maya, the most important thing was not fame or praise from the scientific community. The most important thing was that they had regained their faith, regained the happiness they thought they had lost forever. One day, when Maya was feeding Nathan breakfast, she saw Leo sitting quietly by the window, his eyes filled with peace. She smiled, walked over to the little dog, knelt down and hugged him. "Thank you, Leo." If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have this day. Leo just wagged his tail, gently licking her hand. The little dog didn't need to be praised, didn't need compliments. Because for Leo, the most important thing was Nathan, his best friend. And he would always be there, protecting the boy for the rest of his life. The autumn morning gently poured into the Harper family's small house. The gentle sunlight shone through the windows, covering everything in a warm light. This space was once filled with despair, but now it was filled with hope and happiness. Nathan had progressed more than ever. Not only could he move his arms, but he could also lean on Leo for balance and even began to learn how to lift himself up. That was something that even the best doctors would not have dared to dream of just a few months ago. Maya sat on the carpet, next to Leo, her loyal friend who had not left Nathan's side for a moment. Ethan stood nearby, camera ready in hand, as if not wanting to miss any important moment. Today, they decided to do something bold, let Nathan try to stand up for the first time. "You can do it, Nathan," Maya gently encouraged. Leo stood right in front of the boy, wagging his tail as if to cheer him on. Nathan looked at Maya, then at Ethan, then at Leo. There seemed to be an invisible understanding between the boy and the little dog. A trust that didn't need to be expressed in words. Maya gently placed Nathan's small hand on Leo's back. The whole room held its breath. Nathan frowned, seemingly gathering all his strength. The boy tried to push himself up, his legs still weak, but there was a strong determination in every movement. And then a miracle happened. Nathan lifted himself up for the first time in months. He couldn't stand on his own, but with Leo's help, he was able to lean on his four-legged friend to keep his balance. Maya burst into tears, covering her mouth to stop her sobs. Ethan, who had always been so rational, now couldn't stop the tears of happiness from flowing. "Nathan, you did it!" Maya burst into tears. Leo didn't jump up or bark loudly like the other dogs. He just stood still, his eyes shining with pride, as if he knew the boy would make it. Nathan looked down, realizing he was standing. A bright smile appeared on the boy's face. Without a word, Leo stretched his neck, gently touching Nathan's cheek with his nose, at a silent congratulations. The small room was no longer a place filled with sadness and disappointment. It had become a place to witness a miracle, a testament to the power of love and loyalty. After that magical moment, Nathan's recovery journey became faster than ever. Every day, the boy spent time training with Leo. Every time the boy fell down, Leo would wait patiently, never leaving. Every time Nathan stood up a little longer, Leo would touch his nose to his hand, as a way of cheering him on. Maya and Ethan couldn't express how grateful they were to Leo. If it weren't for the little dog, they might never have had the chance to see their son recover. One day, Ethan sat on the porch, watching Leo playing with Nathan on the lawn. Maya walked over and sat down next to him. "Do you remember the first day we brought Leo home?" she asked. Ethan laughed. "I thought he was just a normal dog. I had no idea he would change our lives." Maya smiled, resting her head on her husband's shoulder. "He didn't just change our lives," she whispered. "He saved our family." Ethan squeezed his wife's hand. He knew she was right. There had been times when they had thought all hope was lost. They had thought there was nothing left to save. But then a small creature with a huge heart had appeared and brought light to their family. Nathan chuckled as Leo ran around him, his tail wagging. The two had become inseparable friends. Maya watched the scene, her heart filled with happiness. "We've been through a lot," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "But in the end, we still have each other. And that's what matters most." Leo ran toward them, jumped onto the chair, and rubbed his head against Ethan's as if he wanted to be petted. Ethan bent down and gently placed his hand on the little dog's head. "Thank you, Leo," he whispered. Leo didn't respond. He just closed his eyes, enjoying the peaceful moment with the people he loved most. A journey had ended, but it was also the beginning of a new life, a life filled with love, hope, and undying loyalty. Because miracles don't always come from science or something supernatural. Sometimes, miracles are simply a loving heart and a dog that never abandons its family. The story of Nathan and Leo is a reminder that love, hope, and patience can change a destiny. Although life can sometimes take us to dark corners, if we don't give up, if we believe in the good things, one day the light will return. Let's cherish our family, cherish our four-legged friends, and most importantly, always believe that miracles can happen at any time, as long as we have love in our hearts.